Billionaire father prepared a party for his daughter, but only the school janitor showed up. And what happened next is unbelievable. The clock read 3:15 when Jonathan checked his cell phone for the 5th time. His fingers slid across the screen as he answered another urgent email, but his eyes constantly darted toward the entrance of the hall. No one had arrived yet. It must be the traffic, he thought, adjusting the tie he kept on even on a Saturday. After all, it was his daughter's birthday, an event he had planned with the same precision as his business meetings. The party hall of the luxury condo building was impeccable. Jonathan had spared no expense. Professional decorators had transformed the space into an enchanted princess kingdom, a theme he had chosen, as Lily had never expressed a specific preference, or maybe he had never asked. Pastel-colored balloons formed arches across the ceiling. A central table displayed a 3-tiered cake decorated with golden crowns and the name Lily in elegant script. Around it, imported sweets were lined up on silver platters, French macarons, Belgian chocolates, cupcakes with glass slipper designs. In one corner, a pile of presents waited, all bought by Jonathan or his secretary. In another, an entertainment company was setting up the last of the games and inflatable toys. "Everything is perfect," assured the event planner, a woman in a grey suit with a clipboard in her hands. "The children are going to love it." Jonathan nodded, satisfied. Lily remained seated in a small decorated chair, her little feet dangling without reaching the floor. The light blue dress matched her eyes. Her blonde hair had been styled into perfect curls by a hairstylist hired especially for the occasion. She looked like a porcelain doll, beautiful and silent. "Do you like the decorations, Princess?" Jonathan asked. Approaching for a moment between one call and another, Lily just nodded, her eyes scanning the nearly empty hall. "Your little friends will be here soon," he assured her, checking the clock again. 3:25. The invitation said 3 o'clock. Some of the mothers must be running late. The cell phone in his pocket vibrated. Jonathan answered immediately upon seeing the name of his biggest client on the screen. "I'm sorry, sweetie. I need to handle this quickly." Lily watched her father walk away to a corner, speaking in a low voice. It was nothing new. He always needed to handle this quickly. She went back to swinging her feet, looking at the door every time she heard a noise. At 4 o'clock, the party should have been in full swing. The music was playing. The lights were flashing. The dessert table remained untouched, and the entertainers maintained forced smiles as they tried to amuse a single child. "Let's play treasure hunt, Lily," suggested a young woman dressed as a princess, her voice filled with exaggerated enthusiasm. Lily didn't answer. Her eyes were fixed on the door. Jonathan, now visibly tense, alternated between calls to some parents and conversations with the planner. "Mrs. Jackson said they have a fever. The Thompsons had a family emergency. The Millers completely forgot," he muttered, running a hand through his hair. "It happens sometimes," the planner commented with a professional smile. "We can adapt the activities for a more intimate party." Jonathan stared at the woman as if she had suggested cancelling a multi-million-dollar corporate merger. Intimate? We invited 25 children. 25. The truth that Jonathan couldn't accept was simple. He had invited the children of his work colleagues, business partners, and neighbors from the condo building, people with whom he maintained superficial relationships based on common interests and social status. None of these children really knew Lily. Lily attended a renowned private school, where Jonathan rarely showed up for parent-teacher meetings. When the teachers mentioned that she was a bit reserved and had difficulty interacting with her peers, he simply increased his donations to the institution and hired private tutors to ensure excellent grades. By 5 o'clock, the reality was undeniable. No one was coming. The entertainment team was already exchanging glances, unsure of how to proceed. The waiters circulated with untouched trays. The planner discreetly checked her watch. That's when Jonathan saw his daughter, really saw her, perhaps for the first time in a long time. Lily was sitting alone at the main table, a princess crown on her golden curls. A single tear streamed down her rosy cheek. She made no noise, didn't call for attention. She just cried silently, as if she were already used to not being noticed. Something broke inside Jonathan. He put his cell phone in his pocket and walked over to his daughter, kneeling beside her. "Lily." She lifted her blue eyes, now tear-filled, and whispered the words that pierced Jonathan's heart. "Nobody came, Daddy." The silence that followed was heavier than any absence. It was the silence of a truth that could no longer be ignored, disguised with expensive gifts or extravagant parties. Jonathan opened his mouth to reply, but what could he say? Nothing could fix the emptiness that gaped between them. It was at that moment that the hall door opened, not with the expected buzz of excited children, but with a timid creak. Mary, the janitor from Lily's school, stood in the entrance. She wore a simple dress, clean but visibly worn at the cuffs. In her hands, she held a small package wrapped in hand-colored newspaper, tied with a piece of twine. Jonathan frowned, momentarily confused. He didn't remember inviting any school staff. In fact, he barely recognized the woman's face. Mary approached with uncertain steps, clearly out of place amidst so much luxury. Her eyes, however, were fixed on Lily, with a gentleness that seemed to light up her plain face. "Janitor, happy birthday, sweetie," Mary said, her simple but sincere voice echoing in the nearly empty hall. Lily looked at the woman, her blue eyes still shining with unshed tears. "Girl, nobody came," she replied with painful honesty, her small voice breaking on the last word. Mary knelt beside Lily's chair, getting down to her eye level, not caring that her modest dress was touching the impeccable floor. "I came," she replied simply, "and I brought something for you." She held out the small package. It looked tiny compared to the mountain of expensive gifts in the corner of the hall. Lily took the package carefully, as if it were something precious. Her fingers slowly undid the twine. "Can I open it now?" she asked, looking at her father, Jonathan, still stunned by the scene unfolding before him, just nodded. Inside the hand-painted newspaper, there was a small storybook and a rag doll. It wasn't an expensive or high-tech doll. It was simple, handmade, with yarn hair as blonde as Lily's and a light blue dress sewn with evident care. "I made it myself," Mary explained with a shy smile. "I thought it looked like you." Lily's face transformed. A genuine smile replaced the tears, lighting up her eyes in a way the expensive toys never had. "She has hair just like mine," she exclaimed, hugging the doll. "And blue eyes too," Mary added, "like yours." Lily suddenly hugged Mary, a spontaneous gesture that took the woman by surprise. After a moment, Mary returned the hug, her eyes closing briefly. "Thank you for coming to my party," Lily murmured against the janitor's shoulder. It was then that Mary began to sing "Happy Birthday to You," her simple, in-tune voice filling the hall. One by one, embarrassed but following her lead, the party staff joined in the singing. The waiters, the entertainment team, the event planner, all singing for a little blonde girl who was now smiling. "Shall we cut the cake?" Mary suggested, after they finished singing. Lily nodded excitedly, holding her new doll in one hand and extending the other to Mary. The janitor looked hesitantly at Jonathan, as if asking for permission. He gave an affirmative gesture, still speechless at the transformation he was witnessing. The three of them went to the cake table. Mary positioned Lily in front of the cake, helping her hold the knife for the symbolic cut. Jonathan stood beside his daughter, feeling strangely like a guest instead of the host. "Make a wish before you cut," Mary whispered. Lily closed her eyes tightly, thinking seriously, before breaking into a smile and cutting the first piece of cake. The hired photographers captured the moment, Lily in the center, with Mary on one side and Jonathan on the other, a composition none of them had planned, but which now seemed the most natural in the world. While they ate the cake, Mary told simple stories that made Lily laugh. She talked about the squirrels in the school garden, about the cat that always showed up in the kitchen, about the clouds that sometimes formed funny shapes in the sky. Jonathan realized, with a mixture of admiration and a pang of envy, how Mary knew the small details of his daughter's daily life that he himself was completely unaware of. "You like stories, don't you? That's why I brought you that book," Mary commented, wiping a bit of frosting from the corner of Lily's mouth. "Yes. Daddy doesn't have much time to read to me, but the nanny reads sometimes," Lily replied. Jonathan felt the comment like a blow, but said nothing. He just watched as his daughter blossomed in Mary's presence. After the cake, Mary surprised everyone again. "How about we play that memory game you like so much at school?" "You know how to play?" Lily asked, her eyes shining. "Of course, and I think your dad can learn too, right?" Mary looked at Jonathan with a gentle smile, without judgment, just an invitation. Jonathan hesitated for a moment, looking at his cell phone that continued to vibrate in his pocket. Then, for the first time in a long time, he decided to ignore it. "I think so," he replied. Will you teach me the rules, Lily?" The girl looked surprised for a moment, but soon her face lit up with enthusiasm. "It's easy, Daddy. You just have to find the matching pairs." The three of them sat in a corner of the hall, on the floor, among the colorful cushions. Jonathan took off his jacket and loosened his tie, feeling awkward but strangely relieved. They played for almost an hour. Mary let Lily win sometimes, but also challenged her enough to keep the game interesting. Jonathan, to his surprise, found that he was genuinely having fun, laughing when he made a mistake and clapping when Lily made a good move. "Shall we dance a little before the party ends?" Mary suggested, noticing that Lily was starting to occasionally glance at the empty dance floor. "Yes!" exclaimed Lily, jumping with excitement. Jonathan signaled to the DJ, who put on a cheerful and infectious song. Lily pulled Mary by the hand to the center of the dance floor. The janitor, initially shy, soon let loose, spinning and jumping with Lily, who giggled with every move. "Come on, Daddy," Lily called, holding out her hand to Jonathan. He hesitated. He couldn't remember the last time he had danced. Mary noticed his hesitation and smiled encouragingly. "Just move to the rhythm, Mr. Richards. No one is judging." Jonathan took a step forward and took his daughter's hand. Soon the three of them were dancing together in a clumsy but laughter-filled circle. The party staff began to smile as they watched the unusual scene, the always serious businessman with his tie loosened, dancing awkwardly with his daughter and the school janitor. For Lily, at that moment, it didn't matter that none of the guests had shown up. She had her father there, truly present for the first time in a long time, and she had Mary, who truly saw her. It was more than enough. When the party finally came to an end, Lily was exhausted but radiant. She held her new rag doll tightly, refusing to put it with the other presents. "This one is sleeping with me tonight," she declared with conviction. Mary said goodbye, promising to see Lily at school on Monday. "Thank you for coming," Jonathan said, extending his hand to Mary. "You saved her birthday." Mary looked at him for a moment, her eyes gentle but direct. "I didn't save anything. I was just present," she replied simply. "Oh, it's all she needs." With those words, Mary left, leaving Jonathan with thoughts he had never considered before. On the way home, Lily slept in the back seat of the car, hugging her new doll. Jonathan watched her in the rearview mirror, her small face serene in sleep. For 5 years, he had tried to buy his daughter's happiness, believing that expensive gifts and luxurious parties were enough. Today, he had seen how a simple handmade gift and the genuine presence of someone who cared could bring more joy than all the money in the world. When he parked in the garage of his mansion, Jonathan didn't wake Lily. Instead, he carefully lifted her into his arms, feeling her small body snuggle against his chest. He carried her inside, up the stairs, and placed her on her bed, still dressed in her party outfit. "Good night, Princess," he whispered, kissing her forehead. Lily sleepily opened her eyes. It was the best party, Daddy," she murmured, before falling back asleep, still clutching the rag doll. Jonathan watched his daughter for a long moment. The silence that now enveloped them was no longer the weight of absence, but the promise of a change that was beginning to grow within him. 3 days had passed since the birthday party. On the surface, everything was back to normal. Jonathan in his office, answering emails and attending video conferences. Lily at school during the day and with the nanny in the afternoon. But something had changed. Jonathan couldn't forget the image of his daughter alone in the party hall, nor the smile that appeared on her little face when Mary showed up. The rag doll, which Lily now took everywhere, was a constant reminder of that day. That evening, Jonathan came home earlier. He usually returned after dinner, when Lily was already in the bath or almost asleep. But today, the clock read only 6:30 when he parked in the mansion's garage. The nanny seemed surprised to see him so early. "Mr. Richards." "We weren't expecting you now," she said, nervously adjusting her apron. "Lily is finishing her homework at the kitchen table." "Thank you, Sandra. You can go home early today. I'll take care of Lily." The woman hesitated, as if she wasn't sure she had heard correctly. "Are you sure, sir? I haven't prepared her dinner yet." "I'm sure. We'll order something," Jonathan replied, taking off his jacket and loosening his tie. "Thank you for everything." When he entered the kitchen, he found Lily bent over a notebook, her tongue sticking out slightly between her lips in concentration, a habit he had barely noticed before. The ragdoll sat next to the notebook like a small, silent supervisor. "Hi, Princess," he said softly. Lily looked up, her blue eyes widening in surprise. "Daddy, you're home?" she asked, with a mix of confusion and joy. The surprised tone in her voice made Jonathan realize how rare his presence at home was. A lump formed in his throat. "Yes, I decided to come home early today," he replied, sitting down next to her. "So what are you doing?" "Math homework," she said, showing him the carefully written numbers. "I have to do these addition and subtraction problems. Do you want some help?" Lily looked at him as if he had offered an unexpected gift. "You know how to do math?" The innocent question made Jonathan laugh. "Yes, I think I can handle these," he replied, pretending to study the simple problems seriously. "Let's see. 7 plus 4. They finished the homework together, with Lily proudly explaining what she had learned at school. Jonathan noticed that she talked about her teacher and her classes, but never mentioned classmates or friends. Now that he was paying attention, it seemed obvious and painful. After dinner, pizza ordered over the phone, a rarity in the house where healthy, balanced meals were strictly served by the nanny. Jonathan took Lily to her room. It was time for bed, something he usually wasn't a part of. Lily's room was perfectly decorated, with white furniture and light pink details. Expensive toys filled the shelves, many still with tags on or in unopened boxes. He realized, with a tightness in his chest, that most had probably been bought by his secretary as compensation gifts for his absences. Lily put on her pajamas and sat on the bed, carefully placing the rag doll on the pillow next to her. "Will you read me a story, Daddy?" she asked, hope in her voice. "Of course," he replied, noticing the small bookshelf in the corner. "Which one do you want?" "This one," Lily said, holding out the book Mary had given her. "Mary told me it's very nice." Jonathan took the simple book. It wasn't an expensive or special edition, but the pages were slightly worn from use. "Tales for Dreaming," the title read. He sat on the edge of the bed and began to read the story of a girl who befriended a star. Lily listened attentively, her eyes shining with every turn of the page. When he finished, she seemed thoughtful. "Did you like the story?" Jonathan asked. "Yes," she replied, hugging the doll. "I wish I had a friend like the star in the story." That sentence opened a door that Jonathan knew he needed to walk through, no matter how difficult it was. "Lily," he began, choosing his words carefully. "At your party, and I noticed that—" He took a deep breath and decided to be direct. "Sis, why did you never tell me you didn't have any friends?" Lily's smile faded. Her blue eyes filled with tears that she tried to hold back, biting her lower lip. Because you're always busy with work, Daddy. You don't have time for me, she replied, her small voice breaking on the last word. Those words hit him deeply, as if someone had opened his chest and squeezed his heart directly. Jonathan felt short of breath for a moment. Every justification he might have rehearsed, that he worked hard for her future, that he wanted to give her the best, that he was building a legacy, evaporated in the face of that simple truth spoken by a 5-year-old child. "Say to whenever I try to talk to you, you're on the phone," Lily continued, the tears now streaming freely down her cheeks. "Or you say later, Princess, Daddy's busy right now." So I stopped trying. Jonathan felt his own eyes burn. He remembered how many times he had pushed Lily away with those exact words, how many times he had held up a finger asking for silence while on the phone, how many drawings she had tried to show him and he had just nodded distractedly without really looking. "At school," Lily continued, her voice choked with small sobs, "the other kids don't want to play with me. They say I'm weird because I'm quiet, but I don't know what to say to them." "Why didn't you tell your teacher?" Jonathan asked, his voice almost a whisper. "I did. She talked to some girls, but then they got madder at me." Lily hugged the doll tighter. "Only Mary talks to me every day. She always asks how I am and listens to my stories, even when she's cleaning the floor." Jonathan felt a wave of shame. A janitor knew his daughter better than he did. A woman who probably earned in a month what he earned in an hour had given Lily more attention than he had in years. "I'm sorry, Lily," he said, pulling her into an awkward but sincere hug. "I'm sorry for not noticing, for not being there." Lily stiffened for a moment, as if unused to this kind of contact from her father. Slowly, her small arms wrapped around his neck. "It's okay, Daddy," she murmured against his shoulder. "I know your work is important." That statement of understanding coming from such a small child broke something inside Jonathan. The tears he had been holding back escaped. "No," he said, pulling back to look into his daughter's eyes. "Nothing is more important than you, Lily. I just forgot that for a while. But I promise I'm going to change." Lily looked at him with her blue eyes, still shining with tears, but with a small spark of hope. "Do you really promise?" "I promise," he replied, wiping a tear from her cheek with his thumb. "Let's start over, okay? And this time, I'll be here to listen to everything you want to tell me." Lily smiled, a small but genuine smile that lit up her little face. "Can I tell you about Mary? She knows how to make funny voices when she tells stories." "I want to hear all about her," Jonathan replied, feeling the weight of guilt, but also a growing determination to do things differently from now on. As Lily talked excitedly about Mary, Jonathan listened with all the attention he had never given before. The painful truth of her words still echoed in his mind. "You're always busy with work, Daddy. You don't have time for me." That night, beside his daughter's bed, Jonathan made a silent vow that those words would never be true again. After putting Lily to bed, Jonathan went downstairs silently and headed to his office. The huge house was plunged into silence, except for the ticking of the old grandfather clock in the hallway. He sat in his leather chair, but didn't turn on the laptop as he did every night. Instead, he swiveled the chair and faced the window, looking out at the darkness. The first birthday he missed, Lily had just turned 2. He was in Tokyo, closing an important deal. He remembered sending a giant teddy bear and making a quick video call, interrupted several times by aides coming in with documents to sign. The first preschool play. Lily was 4 and played a little flower. He had planned to go, but an emergency meeting with investors came up. He sent the nanny to film it. The video was still somewhere on his phone, never watched in its entirety. Bedtime stories practically non-existent, breakfast mornings rare, weekends at the park replaced by expensive gifts delivered by his secretary. Jonathan picked up a picture frame he kept on his desk, a professional photo of Lily taken 6 months ago. She was smiling, but now he realized the smile didn't reach her eyes. How had he not noticed before? The conversation that night had revealed a painful truth. He was practically a stranger to his own daughter. Jonathan opened a desk drawer and found a pile of drawings Lily had made for him. Drawings he had put there, promising to look at them carefully when he had time he never found. In the first drawing, a tall figure in a suit stood next to a small figure in a dress. "Daddy and me," read the caption written in the clumsy handwriting of a child learning to write. They were holding hands, something that rarely happened in real life. Jonathan felt a lump in his throat. In another drawing, a large house with many windows. In each window, a different character. The nanny in the kitchen, the gardener in the yard, the maid in the living room. Lily was in a room, alone, and him. He was nowhere in the picture. The weight of that deliberate absence now crushed him. How many times had he received calls from the school while he was in important meetings? "It can wait. It's not urgent," he would tell his secretary. "You handle it," he would tell the nanny when problems arose. Last Christmas, he promised to be home, but an important client was in town. "Daddy will be there when you wake up," he assured her over the phone. He arrived at 3 in the afternoon, when most of the presents had already been opened, and Lily had already lost her excitement. Her birthday this year was just the culmination of a pattern that had been repeating for years. Jonathan picked up his phone and opened his calendar. It was packed with appointments, meetings, business lunches, dinners with clients, trips. On some weeks, there was barely room to breathe. And where was Lily in that meticulously organized calendar? Nowhere. He had never blocked out even an hour to be with his daughter. He had never put a school presentation or a doctor's appointment for her as an unmissable commitment. Lily was always in the empty spaces, if there were any left. Jonathan stood up and walked to the window. From up there, he could see Lily's room, with the star-shaped nightlight still on. Was she sleeping peacefully with her rag doll, or was she awake, thinking about the conversation they'd had? A specific memory surfaced in his mind. Lily, 3 years old, running to him when he arrived from a trip, yelling, "Daddy!" with her arms open. He was on the phone, discussing numbers with a client, and just nodded without hugging her. The look of disappointment on her little face. How could he have been so blind? He went back to his desk and found another drawing in the drawer. This one more recent, from a few weeks ago. It showed 3 figures. A small one, Lily, a medium one, the nanny, he presumed, and a figure far in the distance, almost off the paper, holding what looked like a cell phone. "Family," the caption read. Jonathan covered his face with his hands. He had built a financial empire. His company was worth millions. His name was respected in the market. He lived in a mansion, had luxury cars, frequented the best restaurants, and his daughter had no friends, and his daughter didn't really know him, and his daughter thought she wasn't worth his time. The weight of his absence wasn't just about the moments he missed, it was about what that absence had communicated to Lily. That she wasn't important enough, that anything deserved more attention than she did. His cell phone vibrated on the desk, an important email. Instinctively, his hand moved to grab it, but he stopped halfway. This was exactly the problem. This automatic reflex to always put work first. Instead of picking up the phone, Jonathan opened a different drawer and took out an old photo album. Lily's first weeks at home, him holding the little bundle, with dark circles under his eyes but smiling genuinely for the camera. The silent promise every father makes, "I will protect you. I will love you. I will always be here." When had he broken that promise? Although he had given Lily everything material, the best school, the best clothes, the best toys, he had failed in the essential: presence, time, attention. He had outsourced fatherhood to nannies, private tutors, and expensive gifts. And now, a janitor who barely earned enough to live, who probably had her own struggles and problems, had done what he couldn't: truly see Lily, be present for her. Jonathan closed the album and looked at the clock. Almost midnight. In less than 8 hours, he would be in a video conference with investors in Asia. Then a meeting with the legal department. After that, lunch with a potential client. He picked up his phone, opened the calendar, and started doing something he had never done before: cancelling appointments, postponing meetings, reorganizing his life. Because now he understood what Mary had said at the party. "I didn't save anything. I was just present. It's all she needs." The weight of his absence was crushing, but it wasn't too late to change. The next morning dawned grey, with a light rain tapping against the mansion's windows. Jonathan was awake long before his alarm went off. In fact, he had barely slept. Lily's words echoed in his mind like a painful mantra. "You're always busy with work, Daddy. You don't have time for me." Sitting on the edge of the bed, still in his pajamas, he looked at the clock. 5:30. Normally, at this hour, he would already be checking emails, preparing for another day of corporate battles. Today, something had changed. He picked up his phone and sent a message to his secretary. "Janet, I need you to permanently reorganize my schedule. Don't book any meetings before 9 a.m. or after 5 p.m., except in truly urgent cases. I will be available by phone for emergencies, but I want to spend more time with my daughter. Details when I get to the office." The reply came almost instantly, even at that hour. "Understood, Mr. Richards. Should I cancel the 7:30 a.m. video conference with Tokyo?" Jonathan hesitated for only a second before replying, "Yes, reschedule for tomorrow during business hours, or have Peter take it." He turned off his cell phone completely, something he hadn't done in years, and walked silently to Lily's room. The door was ajar. Inside, his daughter was sleeping, hugging the rag doll Mary had given her. Her golden curls were spread across the pillow, and her breathing was soft and regular. Jonathan entered without making a sound and sat in the chair near the bed. He just sat there watching his daughter sleep, something he hadn't done since she was a baby. How many moments like this had he missed over the years? At 6:45, Lily began to stir, her little blue eyes opening slowly. For a moment, she seemed confused to see her father sitting there. "Daddy," she murmured sleepily, "what happened?" "Nothing, Princess," he replied with a smile. "I just wanted to see you wake up. I thought we could have breakfast together today." Lily sat up in bed, rubbing her eyes. "But don't you have to work?" The question, so innocent, carried the weight of years of absence. "Work can wait a little," Jonathan replied. "What do you think about pancakes?" Lily's eyes widened. "You know how to make pancakes," Jonathan laughed. "Actually, no. But I can try to learn. We can figure it out together." 20 minutes later, the kitchen was a mess. Flour was scattered across the counter, a puddle of milk was on the floor, and the smell of slightly burnt batter hung in the air. The cook, who normally arrived at 7 a.m. to prepare breakfast, watched the scene with a mixture of shock and amusement. "Mr. Richards, I can take it from here," she offered timidly. "No need, Maria," Jonathan replied, awkwardly flipping a pancake in the pan. "We're having fun, aren't we, Lily?" Lily, her face smudged with flour and a huge smile, nodded vigorously. "Daddy made a pancake that looks like a monster," she said, laughing. Maria watched the unusual scene for a moment before smiling. "May I suggest a little less heat on the pan, sir, and perhaps a bit more milk in the batter?" "Did you hear that, Lily?" Jonathan said. "We're getting professional advice." Lily laughed even harder when the next pancake came out better, but still far from perfect. "It's delicious, Daddy," she declared, after adding a generous amount of maple syrup. During breakfast, Jonathan did something he had rarely done before. He asked questions about school, about what Lily liked to do, about her favorite cartoon shows. He discovered that she loved to draw stars, that her favorite book had a girl who could talk to animals, and that she dreamed of having a puppy. "Do you really want a dog?" Jonathan asked, realizing they had never discussed the subject before. "Yes, but the nanny said you don't like animals," Lily replied, looking down at her plate. Another painful revelation. He had never said he didn't like animals. He had simply never considered the idea because he was always too busy. "That's not true," he corrected gently. "We can talk about it, okay?" Lily's face lit up with possibility. The first week was the hardest. All the systems Jonathan had established in his professional life now had to be rethought. His cell phone rang constantly, and he had to force himself not to answer during his moments with Lily. "Mr. Richards, the client is insisting on speaking with you personally," said Janet, his secretary, over the phone, while Jonathan was helping Lily with her homework. "Tell him I will call him back in an hour, when I'm done helping my daughter with her math," he replied, surprising himself with his own firmness. Across the table, Lily looked up from her notebook, a small smile appearing on her lips. The evenings transformed. Instead of coming home at 9 or 10, too exhausted to do anything but a hurried goodnight kiss, Jonathan was now home at 6, in time for dinner with Lily. "Cell phones go in the box during dinner," he announced, placing his device in a small wooden box he had bought especially for this purpose. "This is our time." Lily placed her rag doll on a chair beside her. "Can Mary have dinner with us too?" she asked, referring to the doll she had named after the janitor. "Of course," Jonathan replied. "I want to hear all about your day. Don't leave anything out." At first, Lily seemed hesitant, as if she didn't believe her father really wanted to hear about the little things that made up her day. The new song she learned in music class, the squirrel she saw in the schoolyard, the drawing she made in art class. But over time, her stories grew longer and more animated. Jonathan listened attentively, asking questions, showing genuine interest. He began to learn the names of her teachers, the school routines, the small dramas of a 5-year-old's daily life. "Do you really care about these things, Daddy?" she asked one evening, after telling an elaborate story about a game she had invented during recess. "Of course I do," he replied, realizing with a pang in his heart how his past absence had made Lily doubt his interest. "I care about everything that's important to you." Bedtime, once a rushed moment delegated to the nanny, became a special ritual. Jonathan read stories, making different voices for each character, making Lily laugh out loud. "You make voices almost as funny as Mary's," she commented one night, referring to the school janitor. "I'm practicing," he replied with a smile. "Maybe one day I'll be as good as she is." One day, while tidying Lily's room, he found a drawing hidden in a drawer. It showed a blonde girl in a blue dress holding the hand of a taller figure in what looked like a suit. Above, written in childish letters, was, "Me and Daddy on a walk." The date in the corner indicated it had been made 3 months prior, a drawing of a wish, not a reality. Jonathan felt his eyes burn. He carefully put the drawing away and, that very day, took Lily for a walk in the park, holding her little hand just like in the picture. At the office, the changes did not go unnoticed. "You've been scarcer, Jonathan," commented his partner, Michael, during a meeting, cancelling dinners, leaving at 5. "It's not like you." "I'm reorganizing my priorities," Jonathan replied simply. "Is this a phase?" Michael asked, raising an eyebrow. "Oh, it's because that contract with the Japanese." "It's not a phase," Jonathan interrupted, with a firmness that surprised even himself. "It's a course correction, and the contract will be closed during business hours. I don't need to sacrifice my evenings for it." "You have an empire to run," Michael insisted. "You can't just scale back your involvement." Jonathan looked his partner directly in the eyes. "I can, and I am. And the interesting thing is, the company is still running perfectly. Maybe that means we didn't need to work 70 hours a week after all." Sometimes, guilt visited him. Guilt for no longer being available 24/7. Guilt for the opportunities he was letting pass. Guilt for years of neglecting Lily. But then, he would remember the look in her eyes when she told him something important and realized he was truly listening. It was worth every professional sacrifice. Gradually, he established new routines. On Mondays, they made homemade pizza together, with Lily choosing the toppings. Wednesdays were for board games. On Saturday mornings, they explored a new place in the city, a park, a children's museum, a bookstore with a story hour. The changes in Lily began to appear gradually. First, it was small smiles when she saw him come home. Then, questions about when he would be back. as if she now had hope that he would actually be there. Finally, she started saving stories and drawings to show him, confident that she would have his attention. A month after his decision, Jonathan was working in his home office when he felt two little arms wrap around his neck from behind. Lily had come in quietly and was hugging him spontaneously, something she had never done before. "Thank you, Princess," he said, moved. "To what do I owe this hug?" "Just because," she replied, before running back to her toys. That simple gesture, an unsolicited hug given just because she felt like it, was worth more than all the million-dollar contracts he had ever closed. Saturday mornings, once filled with work calls or golf with clients, were now sacred. Jonathan and Lily explored parks, visited children's museums, and had picnics when the weather allowed. "Look, Daddy, a squirrel!" Lily exclaimed during a walk in the park, her blue eyes shining with excitement. Jonathan knelt beside her, watching the small animal scurry up a tree trunk. "How did you know that squirrels hide food for the winter, but sometimes they forget where they hid it?" he asked. "Really?" Lily looked at him, fascinated. "How do they eat then?" "Sometimes they find the food that other squirrels hid," he explained. "And sometimes the nuts they forget end up growing into new trees. So they plant trees by accident," Lily laughed. "That's so funny." Jonathan realized it was the first time he had shared knowledge with his daughter this way, a simple exchange, a moment of connection over something that had captured her interest. On a particularly warm afternoon, he took Lily for ice cream. As she savored a chocolate sundae almost bigger than her face, Jonathan noticed how her eyes now met his easily, without that cautious look from before, as if she were always preparing to be ignored. "Daddy, do you remember that story you told me yesterday?" she asked, her face smudged with chocolate. "About the prince who was afraid of frogs," Jonathan replied promptly. Lily's smile upon realizing he actually remembered was like a ray of sunshine. "Yes, I made up a sequel. Want to hear it?" "More than anything," he replied sincerely. It wasn't just the big changes that made a difference, but the small daily gestures. Putting a little note in her lunchbox with a clumsy drawing, Jonathan had no artistic talent, asking about the imaginary friend she had created, remembering the names of characters from the stories she made up. "Daddy, do you remember Princess Star from my story yesterday?" Lily asked one afternoon. "Of course," Jonathan replied promptly. "She had a blue horse with wings and was looking for the hidden treasure map." Lily's smile upon realizing he had truly paid attention to her improvised story was like a ray of sunshine. When the day of the first school event since his change of attitude arrived, Jonathan cancelled 3 meetings to be able to attend. It was just a small music presentation where each class would sing a song. "Are you sure you can go?" Lily asked on the morning of the event, her tone revealing she was bracing for disappointment. "Absolutely," Jonathan replied, showing her his phone. "See, I put a reminder with 3 alarms. Nothing is going to make me miss your performance." When he arrived at the school, he noticed how Lily anxiously searched for him in the audience as the children lined up to sing. The smile that lit up her face when she saw him was like a precious gift. After the performance, while talking with Lily's teacher, he noticed Mary cleaning the nearby hallway. The janitor smiled when she saw him there, giving a discreet wave. Jonathan realized he owed her more than he could ever express. She was the one who had opened his eyes to what truly mattered. "Mr. Richards," the teacher commented, looking surprised. "Lily has been different these past few weeks, more participative, more confident. Did something special happen?" Jonathan looked at his daughter, who was proudly showing her drawing to another girl in the class. "Yes," he replied simply. "I realized I was missing out on what really matters." That night, as he tucked Lily into bed, she surprised him with a question. "Daddy, are you happy now?" "What do you mean, Princess?" "Before, you always seemed worried. Now you smile more." Jonathan reflected on his 5-year-old daughter's perceptive observation. "Yes, Lily, I'm much happier now," he answered honestly. "And do you know why?" She shook her head, waiting for the answer. "Because I'm finally doing what really matters." being your dad. For real. Lily smiled and closed her eyes, satisfied with the answer. As he watched her fall asleep, Jonathan realized that in recent years, he hadn't just missed precious moments of Lily's childhood, he had lost essential parts of himself. Now, little by little, he was rediscovering the man he wanted to be, the father his daughter deserved. The small daily gestures were creating big changes, not just in Lily, but in himself. And for the first time since becoming a father, Jonathan felt he was truly living fatherhood, not as an obligation to be fulfilled between work commitments, but as the greatest and most important journey of his life. The morning sun streamed through the large windows of Westfield Elementary School, creating small rainbows on the freshly waxed floor. Mary pushed her cleaning cart down the empty hallway, enjoying the silence before the start of classes. It was her favorite time of day, when she could work without interruption and prepare everything for the children's arrival. At 45, Mary Lambert knew every corner of that school. For 8 years, she had cleaned these hallways, classrooms and bathrooms with the same dedication as on her first day. But, contrary to what many thought, Mary wasn't just a janitor. She was a keen observer of the life that pulsed within that place, especially one life in particular. At 8:15, the playground began to fill up. Children ran, shouted, formed groups, traded cards, secrets, and laughter. Mary, while cleaning the windows of the teachers' lounge, watched the scene outside. Her experienced eyes quickly located Lily's golden hair as she arrived, holding her father's hand. A discreet smile appeared on Mary's lips. She noticed how Jonathan knelt to be at his daughter's level, how he talked with her for a few minutes, and how he gave her a long farewell hug instead of the hurried kiss from before. They were small changes, but Mary noticed them all. "It seems something has changed in that little girl's life," commented Mrs. Carter, who was preparing her coffee in the small break room. Mary nodded, without taking her eyes off the scene. "Yes, ma'am. Her father finally understood what really matters." Mrs. Carter looked curiously at Mary, but didn't ask any more questions. She returned to her papers, leaving the janitor to her thoughts. Mary still remembered Lily's birthday party. How her heart had ached to see the girl alone in that huge hall, waiting for guests who would never come. She remembered how she had hesitated at the door, unsure if her presence would be welcome, but unable to ignore the little one's loneliness. And she remembered the transformation on Lily's face when she had given her simple gift, a doll made with her own hands in her spare time, inspired by the girl who always greeted her with a shy smile in the hallways. The bell rang, announcing the start of classes. Mary finished cleaning the windows and pushed her cart to the next hallway. Her morning shift consisted of cleaning the common areas while the children were in their rooms. Then, during recess, she cleaned the bathrooms and the kitchen. In the afternoon, when classes resumed, it was the empty classrooms that received her attention. It was a well-established routine that allowed her to observe the flow of the school without interfering, usually. At 10:30, the bell for recess echoed through the hallways. Mary had already finished the bathrooms and was in the kitchen when the children started to spread out across the playground. As always, she positioned herself to have a clear view of the outside area while she wiped the counters. And as always, she saw Lily come out alone, carrying a small book. The girl sat on a bench in the shade of a tree, away from the hustle and bustle of the other children. She opened her book and began to read, or pretend to read, occasionally looking up to watch the groups playing. Mary sighed. Despite the clear improvements at home, some things hadn't changed. Lily still spent recess alone, still had no friends, still watched the others. Fun from a distance. "Poor little lamb," Mary murmured to herself, using the nickname she had given Lily in her thoughts. "Talking to yourself again, Mary," joked Doris, the cook, as she put away some trays. "Just thinking out loud," Mary replied with a smile. "Ever notice how some children are always alone at recess?" Doris shrugged. "Some kids are just like that, shy, quiet. Not all of them need to be in the middle of the mess." Mary nodded, but she didn't completely agree. Her eyes returned to Lily, who was now drawing something in her notebook, still alone. "Sometimes they just need a little push," she murmured, more to herself than to Doris. Over the following weeks, Mary continued to watch Lily with renewed attention. She noticed small changes. The girl brought more elaborate snacks, likely prepared by her father. Sometimes she arrived with different hairstyles, clear attempts by Jonathan to learn how to do his daughter's hair, and she often had little notes in her lunchbox, which she read with a smile. But at recess, the pattern remained the same. Lily alone, alternating between reading, drawing, and watching the other children. Mary constantly thought of ways to help. She had already done what she could by showing up at the party, by showing Jonathan the value of being present. Now, the girl needed something that neither her father nor Mary could give her directly: friendships. On a rainy Tuesday, Mary was cleaning the main hallway when the principal walked by, accompanied by an elegant woman and a small figure by her side. "This is Mrs. Peterson's room, where Olivia will be," the principal was explaining. "It's a wonderful class. I'm sure she'll adapt quickly." Mary looked up from her work and saw a girl who seemed to be the same age as Lily. She had blonde hair, almost white, eyes of a lighter blue than Lily's, and a small, delicate face. She held her mother's hand tightly and looked at the floor while the adults talked. "I hope so," the mother replied, with an accent Mary couldn't place. "The transfer was sudden, with my husband's new job. Olivia has always been reserved, and moving to a new country hasn't been easy." Mary continued her work, but her ears were attentive. "I understand perfectly," said the principal. "We have other children in similar situations. Our school has an excellent integration program." The three of them passed by Mary, who smiled gently at the little girl. Olivia briefly looked up, returning a shy smile before looking back down at the floor. Something in that look made Mary pause for a moment. It was the same look as Lily's, a mix of shyness, intelligence, and a subtle sadness that shouldn't be on a child's face. In the following days, Mary began to watch the new student as well. As she expected, Olivia showed the same pattern of isolation as Lily. During recess, she sat on another bench, not far from where Lily used to sit, and drew in a colorful notebook. Occasionally, the two would look at each other, acknowledging the other's presence, but quickly look away, each returning to her own private world. Mary smiled to herself. Perhaps the solution to Lily's problem had just arrived. On a Thursday, just during recess, Mary decided to put her plan into action. Instead of cleaning the kitchen, she asked Doris to switch duties. "I need to check if the plunger I used on the playground water fountain worked," she explained, an excuse that sounded plausible enough. With a bucket and a cloth, Mary went out to the playground. As expected, Lily was on her usual bench, this time with the rag doll Mary had made. Not far away, Olivia was drawing, alone as always. Mary approached the water fountain, which was strategically located between the two benches, and began to clean it meticulously. As she worked, she hummed a simple tune under her breath. She noticed when Lily looked up, recognizing her. The girl smiled. "Hi, Mary," she said in a low voice. "Hello, sweetie," Mary replied, smiling. "I see you brought your doll today." Lily nodded, holding up the little rag doll. "Her name is Mary, like you," she explained. "Daddy said I can bring her to school if I take good care of her. It's an honor to have a doll with my name," Mary replied, feigning surprise. Out of the corner of her eye, she noticed that Olivia had stopped drawing and was discreetly watching the conversation. "And what are you reading today?" Lily showed her the book. It was the same one Mary had given her for her birthday. "It's my favorite," the girl said. "I'm reading it for the third time." Mary smiled, genuinely touched. "You know," she said, speaking a little louder than necessary, "I know someone else who loves books." She turned slightly toward Olivia, who quickly lowered her eyes to her notebook. "Hello, sweetie. You're new here, aren't you?" Olivia looked up, surprised to be included in the conversation. She nodded shyly. "I'm Mary, the janitor," Mary continued gently, "and this is Lily. She really likes books too. Lily looked at Olivia with curiosity, but said nothing. What are you drawing? Mary asked, moving a little closer to Olivia. The girl hesitated before turning her notebook to show it. It was a detailed drawing of a black cat with yellow eyes. It's beautiful, Mary exclaimed. Lily loves to draw too, right, Lily? Lily nodded, looking with interest at Olivia's drawing. Do you like cats? Mary asked Olivia. Yes, the girl replied, her voice almost a whisper. We had one in our country, but we couldn't bring him. That's a shame, Mary said with sincere empathy. Then she had an idea. Lily, why don't you show your book to Olivia? There's a story about a magical cat in there that I think she would like. Lily seemed to consider the suggestion for a moment. Then, to Mary's relief, she stood up and walked hesitantly to Olivia's bench. May I? She asked, indicating the empty space next to the other girl. Olivia nodded, moving over slightly to make room. Mary watched, her heart full of hope, as Lily opened the book and began to show the illustrations to Olivia. Discreetly, she moved away to continue her work, but kept the two under her watchful eye. It was just a small moment, a small connection, but Mary knew that sometimes that was all it took to start a friendship. In the following days, Mary continued to create small opportunities for the girls to meet. One day, she accidentally dropped some colored paper near them, asking for help to pick it up. On another, she commented on how the day was perfect for drawing outside, suggesting they share their art supplies, little gestures, little excuses, little bridges. Gradually, Mary noticed she no longer needed to intervene. Lily and Olivia began to sit together naturally during recess. Olivia would show her drawings, and Lily would tell stories or read excerpts from her favorite books. They were still shy interactions, still cautious, but they were interactions. Mary watched from a distance, cleaning the same surfaces more times than necessary, just to be able to follow the development of that budding friendship. On a Friday, while cleaning the windows of the teacher's lounge, Mary saw something that warmed her heart. Lily and Olivia were running across the playground, chasing a butterfly, laughing together. It wasn't an elaborate game, there were no roaring peals of laughter, but it was authentic, it was spontaneous, it was friendship. It worked, didn't it? Said a voice behind her. Mary turned, surprised, and found Mrs. Carter watching the same scene. What did? Mary asked, trying to play dumb. The teacher smiled, taking a sip of her coffee. I saw what you did, Mary. The coincidences you created to bring those two together. It was very kind of you. Mary felt her cheeks flush. I just thought they had a lot in common, she replied, returning to cleaning the window. Sometimes kids just need a little push. And you gave that push, the teacher affirmed. You know, a lot of people don't realize how much you observe, how much you care. To most, you're just the janitor, but I see more. Mary smiled, embarrassed by the compliment. I'm just doing my job, Mrs. Carter. Your job is to clean the school, not to mend lonely hearts, the teacher replied with a gentle smile. And what you did goes above and beyond your duties. Mary looked at the playground again, where Lily was now showing her doll to Olivia. The other girl held it carefully, as if it were a treasure. Sometimes, small gestures create big changes, Mary said, unknowingly repeating the words Jonathan had said weeks ago. And sometimes, all a child needs is someone who truly sees them. Mrs. Carter watched Mary for a moment with renewed curiosity. Do you have children, Mary? The janitor hesitated, her gaze fixed on the scene outside. No, Mrs. Carter. I never had that blessing. But as she watched Lily and Olivia, she felt something very similar to what she imagined maternal pride to be. Not because she had raised these girls, but because she had helped create something between them. Something that, with luck, would grow and flourish over time. Mary returned to her work, while on the playground, two blonde, light-eyed girls, once alone in their own private worlds, now shared laughter, secrets, and the beginning of a friendship that, perhaps, would last for a long time. And for Mary, that was the most important kind of cleaning she had ever done. clearing the path so that two lonely souls could find each other. October arrived, bringing colder nights and starry skies. Nearly 2 months had passed since Jonathan reorganized his life to prioritize Lily. The routine they established, dinners together, bedtime stories, weekend outings, already felt natural, as if it had always been this way. On that Wednesday night, the mansion was quiet. Jonathan had come home early from work and had spent the afternoon helping Lily with a school project, a small solar system made of styrofoam balls, paint, and a lot of glitter, which was now drying on the kitchen table. After her bath, dressed in her light blue pajamas with stars, Lily sat on her bed while Jonathan chose the night's book. "How about we continue the story of the warrior princess?" he suggested, picking up the book they had started the night before. To his surprise, Lily shook her head. "I don't want a story tonight, Daddy." Jonathan raised his eyebrows, sitting on the edge of the bed. "All right. Are you tired?" "No," she replied, hugging her rag doll, which now rarely left her side. "I just want to talk." "About what?" Jonathan asked, noticing something different in his daughter's eyes, a kind of seriousness unusual for a 5-year-old. Lily sat up in bed, her small face showing an expression that seemed like a mix of joy and nervousness. "Daddy, I have a friend now." The simplicity of the sentence made Jonathan's heart clench. 4 words that, for many parents, would be mundane. Of course, a child would have friends, but for him, who knew Lily's silent loneliness, they were words that carried the weight of a transformation. "You do," he replied, trying to keep his voice calm, despite the emotion he felt growing inside. "That's wonderful, Princess. Who is she?" "Olivia," Lily said, her blue eyes shining. "She's new at school. She came from another country and talks funny sometimes." Jonathan smiled, vaguely remembering a mention of the new student the teacher had made the previous week, during a brief chat at school pickup. "And how did you become friends?" Lily adjusted the doll in her lap, thoughtful. "Olivia didn't have any friends either. We found each other because we were the same. But you know, sometimes I'm still scared. Scared that tomorrow she won't want to play with me anymore." The confession, so honest and vulnerable, made Jonathan swallow hard. Even with his reorganized life, even with his now constant presence, there were wounds that would take time to heal, insecurities that fatherly love couldn't instantly erase. Jonathan took Lily's small hand in his, squeezing it gently. He wanted to say that everything would be okay, that Olivia would continue to be her friend, that she was special and lovely, and that any child would be lucky to have her as a friend. But the words felt insufficient, empty of guarantees he couldn't offer. So he just held her hand in silence, hoping his touch would communicate what words could not. Lily looked at their joined hands and then at her father's face. Then, as if sharing an important secret, she leaned forward a little. "But Mary helped me. She said I could be brave, and I was. That's why I talked to Olivia." Jonathan blinked, surprised. "Mary, the school janitor?" Lily nodded vigorously. "She always talks to me at recess. And one day, she saw Olivia drawing alone and said she thought we both had a lot in common, that maybe we could be friends." Jonathan listened attentively, realizing there was more to the story than he imagined. "And then you talked to Olivia?" "Not that day," Lily replied, shaking her head. "I was scared. But the next week, Mary told me something very important." "What did she say?" "She said that sometimes we have to be brave, even when we're scared. That being brave isn't about not being afraid. It's about doing things even with fear." Jonathan felt a lump in his throat. It was a profound concept for a 5-year-old, but explained in a way she could understand. "Kes, and then the next day when I saw Olivia drawing a cat," Lily continued, "I remembered what Mary said. I took a deep breath and went to ask if she liked real cats or just drawing them." The simplicity of the approach, the purity of that first contact, made Jonathan smile despite the weight he felt in his chest. "And what did she say?" "That she loved cats, but she had to leave hers in the other country. She seemed sad, So I showed her my book that has a magic cat that helps a girl make friends. Lily paused, her eyes shining with the memory. I think she liked it because the next day she showed me how to draw cats with stripes. Jonathan watched his daughter, marveling at the subtle but profound transformation. The Lily from a few months ago would never have taken the initiative to talk to an unknown child. She would never have offered her favorite book or risked rejection. Thanks, that was very brave of you, Lily, he finally said, feeling immense pride. That's what Mary said too, Lily exclaimed, excited. She saw me talking to Olivia and later told me she was proud of me, that I had been as brave as a lioness. It was then that Jonathan fully understood. Mary hadn't just noticed Lily's loneliness. She hadn't just brought the two girls together by creating opportunities for them to meet. She had done something even more fundamental. She had given Lily the confidence to believe in herself, to take the first step, to risk rejection for the possibility of connection. As Lily continued to talk excitedly about the games she invented with Olivia, Jonathan felt a wave of gratitude that almost suffocated him. This woman, whom he barely knew, who earned a fraction of what he paid Lily's nanny, had seen his daughter in a way he himself hadn't been able to for years. She had believed in her, encouraged her, and most importantly, had given her the tools to grow. Tomorrow we're going to play explorers, Lily was saying, her eyes already heavy with sleep. Olivia has never played that, so I'm going to teach her. Mary said that teaching someone something is a special gift. Mary sounds very wise, Jonathan commented, tucking her in as Lily settled down to sleep. She is, Lily murmured, hugging her doll. She knows a lot of things. Did you know she didn't have any friends when she was little either? She told me. That's why she understands. This last revelation hit Jonathan like a wave. Suddenly, he remembered what Mary had said at the birthday party. I came. Two simple words that now carried a much deeper meaning. She hadn't shown up just out of kindness or compassion. She had shown up because she knew from her own experience the pain of childhood loneliness. Good night, Daddy, Lily murmured, her eyes already closing. Good night, Princess, he replied, kissing her forehead. Sweet dreams. As he turned off the light, leaving only the star-shaped nightlight on, Jonathan thought about the complex web of connections that had led his daughter from loneliness to friendship. His own awakening to true fatherhood, Mary's constant and gentle presence, Olivia's timely arrival, and finally, Lily's growing courage. It wasn't just one adult who saved a child. It was a small, impromptu community that formed around her, each contributing what they could offer. And at the center of it all, a janitor with a huge heart and wisdom to share. Olivia's first visit happened on a sunny Saturday in October. Jonathan had planned to take Lily to the zoo, but she surprised him at breakfast with an unexpected request. Daddy, can I invite Olivia to play here today? The question caught him off guard. Lily had never invited anyone over before. Of course, Princess. Have you already talked to her about it? Yes, Lily replied, swinging her legs in her chair. Her mum said she would call to confirm. The phone call came an hour later. Jonathan spoke briefly with Olivia's mother, a woman with a soft accent who introduced herself as Sophie Bennett. They arranged for her to bring her daughter over after lunch. Lily spent the entire morning in a flurry, arranging her toys, choosing books to show her friend, and repeatedly asking what time it was. Jonathan watched, delighted, this new version of his daughter, anxious, excited, full of expectations. At 2 in the afternoon, the doorbell rang. Lily ran to the door, pausing only to straighten her dress before Jonathan opened it. Olivia stood there, holding her mother's hand, wearing a lilac dress and carrying a small backpack. Her light blonde hair was in a loose braid, and her pale blue eyes surveyed the mansion with restrained admiration. Welcome, Olivia, Jonathan said, smiling. Lily is very excited for your visit. The girl smiled shyly, but her eyes lit up when she saw Lily. I brought my sketchbook, she said softly. Cool, Lily exclaimed, taking her friend's hand. Come on, I want to show you my room first, and then the garden." The two quickly disappeared up the stairs, leaving Jonathan to chat briefly with Sophie before she left, promising to return at 6. For the first hour, Jonathan stayed nearby, offering snacks and observing their interactions. He noticed how Olivia, initially shy in the new environment, gradually opened up under Lily's enthusiasm. He saw how his daughter showed her books and toys with pride, but also with a generosity he had never witnessed before, offering Olivia the first choice, asking her preferences, attentive to her reactions. "Daddy, can we play in the garden?" Lily finally asked. After the two had explored the room and eaten the sandwiches Jonathan had prepared. "Of course," he replied. "God, you want me to come with you?" Lily looked at Olivia, who gave a subtle shake of her head. "No need, Daddy, we know the way." That small phrase, "we know the way," carried an independence that was new for Lily. Jonathan nodded, hiding his emotion. "Hey, I'll be on the porch if you need anything." From his post on the porch, Jonathan could watch the girls without interfering. The mansion's extensive garden, meticulously maintained by professional gardeners, had always been more of a decorative piece than a play space. Large trees provided generous shade, flower beds displayed sophisticated arrangements, and a small central fountain completed the elegant scenery. Before, Lily rarely played there. She preferred to stay in her room, even on the most beautiful days. The garden remained silent, sterile in its perfection. But now, two small figures ran among the trees, transforming the formal space into a land of adventure. Jonathan watched, fascinated, as the girls invented elaborate games. One moment, the stone bench near the fountain became a ship on the high seas. The next, the area under the willow tree transformed into a secret cabin. The flowers weren't just decoration. They became magical treasures in their improvised narratives. And the sound, that sound Jonathan had never realized was missing, now filled the air. Laughter. Not restrained or polite giggles, but genuine, spontaneous, free laughter. The kind of laughter that comes from deep within, that can't be rehearsed or forced. The garden, once silent, now echoed with that childish music. In one particularly touching moment, Jonathan saw Lily teach Olivia how to make a flower crown. Their little blonde heads bent together over the project, talking in low voices, focused on the task. When they finished, they placed the crowns on each other, declaring themselves queens of the garden with a comical solemnity. The afternoon passed quickly. The sun was beginning to set when Sophie returned to pick up Olivia. The girls appeared at the door with wrinkled clothes, disheveled hair, faces flushed from running, and enormous smiles. "Mom, can I come again?" Olivia asked immediately. Sophie looked at Jonathan, who nodded enthusiastically. "Whenever you like," he replied. "Olivia is always welcome." After they left, Lily stood at the door for a moment, waving until the car disappeared. Then she turned to her father, her eyes shining. "It was the best day, Daddy." That night, after dinner, Jonathan found Lily on the porch, looking at the now silent garden in the darkness. "What are you thinking about, Princess?" "About how good it is to have a friend," she answered simply. Jonathan sat beside her, following her gaze to the space where hours before so much joy had blossomed. "What do you know, Daddy?" Lily continued after a moment. "I think the garden liked Olivia too. It looked prettier today." Jonathan smiled, understanding perfectly what she meant. The garden hadn't changed. It still had the same elegant design, the same carefully arranged plants. What had changed was its purpose, its energy, just like Lily. In the following weeks, Olivia became a constant presence at the house. The girls took turns, one weekend at Lily's house, the next at Olivia's. They invented secret clubs, set up treasure hunts, and created illustrated stories on long rolls of paper. And the garden, once a static backdrop, became the main stage for their adventures. The trees were given names, certain corners received special designations, and even the fountain came to harbor imaginary creatures that the girls visited regularly. Jonathan, watching from a distance, felt an emotion that went beyond simple fatherly joy. It was the profound feeling of witnessing not just a friendship, but a blossoming. His daughter, once a solitary flower in a silent garden, was now growing, opening up, reaching for the light. As if she had finally found the right soil for her roots, November arrived with grey skies and cold winds that heralded winter. Jonathan drove his imported car through the city's wet streets, the windshield wipers working to the rhythm of the fine rain. His destination was not the office, nor a business meeting, but Westfield Elementary School. The conversation with Lily the previous night still echoed in his mind. For weeks, he had watched his daughter blossom. How she came home from school with excited stories about Olivia. How their games in the garden became increasingly creative. How her smile now seemed permanent instead of rare. But only yesterday, as he tucked her into bed, did Jonathan fully understand the role Mary had played in this transformation. She told me I could be brave, and I was. Those simple words had revealed something profound. Mary hadn't just noticed Lily's loneliness and created opportunities for her to meet Olivia. She had given his daughter something much more valuable, the courage to believe in herself, to take the initiative, to take a risk. Jonathan parked his car in the school's small lot. It was almost noon, the children's lunchtime, when he knew Mary would be cleaning the empty hallways. He had called the principal earlier, making up an excuse about documents he needed to deliver in person. As he entered the building, he felt strangely nervous. What exactly would he say? How could he properly thank someone who had done so much for his daughter, and by extension, for himself? Any words seemed insufficient. The school hallways, decorated with the children's colorful artwork, were quiet except for the distant buzz coming from the cafeteria. Jonathan walked slowly, looking for the familiar figure of the janitor. He found her on the second-floor hallway, kneeling as she cleaned a stubborn mark on the floor. Her simple grey uniform contrasted with the vibrant murals on the walls. She worked with efficient and precise movements, completely focused on the task. For a moment, Jonathan just watched. This woman, whom he barely knew, had seen his daughter when he himself was blind to her needs. She had understood Lily in a way that he, despite all his love and recent good intentions, was still learning. "Mary," he finally called, his voice lower than he intended. She looked up, surprise evident on her face. She stood up quickly, adjusting her uniform with slightly nervous hands. "Mr. Richards, did something happen to Lily?" No, he quickly reassured her. "Lily is fine. In fact, she's better than fine. That's why I came to talk to you." Mary visibly relaxed, but confusion remained in her eyes. "With me?" Jonathan took a few steps forward, stopping at a respectful distance. He suddenly felt extremely aware of the contrast between them, his expensive suit against her simple uniform, his impeccable Italian shoes next to the used cleaning bucket. "Lily told me about you," he said, choosing his words carefully. "About how you encouraged her to talk to Olivia. How you told her she could be brave." Mary blushed slightly, looking down. "It was nothing special, just a few words of encouragement." "It was much more than that," Jonathan insisted, his voice catching against his will. "Mary, I don't know how to thank you. You gave my daughter what I couldn't, joy and friendship." The simplicity and sincerity of those words seemed to touch Mary deeply. She stood still for a moment, holding the cleaning cloth in her hands, as if deciding something important. Then, she raised her eyes to meet Jonathan's. "Jonathan, when I was a child, I didn't have any friends either," she said, her voice soft but firm. "I was poor, different from the others. I know what that pain feels like. When I saw Lily in the corners, I saw myself in her. I couldn't let her go through what I went through." The revelation, so honest and vulnerable, hit Jonathan like a physical blow. Of course, there was a personal reason for Mary's interest in Lily. It wasn't just random kindness or casual sympathy. It was empathy born from her own experience. "I grew up in an orphanage," Mary continued, her gaze now distant, as if seeing the past. "The other children had their groups, their cliques. I was too quiet, too strange. I spent entire recesses reading alone, making up stories in my head. because no one wanted to play with me. Jonathan listened in silence, realizing that this might be the first time Mary had shared this story with someone in a long time. "The difference is that I had no one," she added it with a small, sad smile. "No adult who noticed, who cared. No father who would change his life for me, like you did for Lily, but I only realized it after you showed me," Jonathan admitted, the humility clear in his voice. "You were the one who opened my eyes at that party." Mary shook her head. "You already had it all inside you. You just needed to remember what really matters." A comfortable silence fell between them. Outside, the rain had picked up, tapping rhythmically against the hallway windows. From somewhere distant came the sound of children's laughter, probably from the cafeteria. "Do you know what makes me happiest?" Mary asked, breaking the silence. "Seeing Lily and Olivia together. Two girls who could have spent the whole year alone, each in her own corner, now have each other. It's like—" She hesitated, searching for the words. "Like coming full circle?" Jonathan suggested. "Exactly," Mary agreed with a genuine smile. As if a part of my own story has been healed somehow, Jonathan felt the weight of those words. He realized that Mary had not only helped Lily, she had also healed a part of her own story. She had turned her pain into compassion, her experience into wisdom to offer another lonely child. It was then that an idea that had been germinating in his mind since the previous night took definite shape. "Mary, I have a proposal for you," he said, feeling strangely nervous. "For some time now, I've been thinking about hiring someone to help at home. Someone who can be there when Lily gets home from school, on the days I need to stay late at the office. Someone she already knows and trusts." Mary looked at him with an unreadable expression. "I want you to work at my house," Jonathan continued. "That way you can stay close to Lily. The salary will be much better." The surprise on Mary's face was evident. She opened and closed her mouth, as if words failed her. I don't know what to say," she finally replied. "It's a generous offer, but—" "It's not charity," Jonathan interrupted, sensing her hesitation. "Nor is it just gratitude, though I am eternally grateful for what you've done for Lily. It's a professional proposal based on what I've seen. Your sensitivity, your intelligence, your ability to connect with my daughter in a way few adults can." Mary seemed to consider his words carefully. "What kind of work would it be, exactly?" "A sort of housekeeper," Jonathan explained. "Supervising the house, being present when Lily gets home from school, accompanying her on activities when I can't. You would have your own room, regular days off, everything legally registered." He could see the conflict on her face, the temptation of the offer against what seemed like fear or doubt. "It's a big change," she finally said. "I understand if you need time to think," Jonathan replied. "You don't have to decide right now." Mary looked at the cleaning bucket beside her, at the hallway she still needed to finish cleaning. Then, with a sudden resolution, she looked up. "I don't need time. I accept." The simplicity of her answer took Jonathan by surprise. "Are you sure?" Mary nodded, a serene smile on her face. "I am. You know, I've worked at this school for 8 years. I like it here. The children, the routine. But maybe it's time for a change, and the idea of being able to continue helping Lily." She didn't complete the sentence, but it wasn't necessary. Jonathan held out his hand, which Mary shook after a brief moment of hesitation. It was a formal gesture to seal a deal, but they both knew it represented much more. A new chapter, a new beginning, a bridge between different worlds. "When can I start?" Mary asked. "How about next weekend? That will give us time to prepare everything, sort out the paperwork, and for you to give your notice here." Mary agreed, and at that moment, the bell rang, announcing the end of lunchtime. Soon, the hallway would be invaded by noisy children returning to their classrooms. "I need to finish this hallway before they get back," Mary said, indicating the unfinished work. "So, of course," Jonathan replied, understanding. "We'll talk more in the coming days." As he walked away, he heard Mary call his name. He turned and found her smiling, a serene expression on her face. "Thank you for seeing beyond the janitor," she said simply. Jonathan felt a lump in his throat. "Thank you for seeing beyond my daughter's loneliness." On his way out of the school, Jonathan passed children returning from lunch. Among them, he recognized Lily and Olivia, walking side by side, chatting animatedly. Lily saw him and waved, surprised and happy to see him there. He waved back, feeling a wave of gratitude so intense it almost took his breath away. 2 weeks later, Mary moved into the Richards mansion. The transition was smoother than anyone could have expected. Lily was ecstatic to learn that Mary would be living with them and quickly included the woman in her games with Olivia, who now visited the house almost daily. Mary brought a different energy to the mansion. Under her care, the house ceased to be just elegant and impeccable. It became warm, alive. She covered the expensive sofas with colorful blankets for the girls to build forts, allowed them to make cookies in the kitchen, even if it meant flour everywhere, and new stories and songs that enchanted not only the children, but Jonathan as well. For Jonathan, the transformation went beyond the house. He continued to reorganize his professional life, delegating more responsibilities, declining unnecessary trips. He discovered that the company not only survived without his constant presence, in many ways, it thrived with more distributed leadership and a less centralized culture. And he discovered, and to his surprise, that he enjoyed the conversations with Mary on the evenings they were both home. She had a simple but profound wisdom, born from experiences he had never known, and a direct way of seeing the world that complemented his own view, sometimes limited by privilege and ambition. For Mary, the change brought not only material comfort and financial security, but recognition and dignity. For the first time, her natural talent for caring, teaching, and connecting with children was valued as an important skill, not as something secondary. And although she remained simple in her tastes and habits, she allowed herself small luxuries that were previously unthinkable, like an evening literature course she had always dreamed of taking. For Lily, each day brought new joys. Having Olivia as a friend, a present father, and Mary always nearby created a sense of security and belonging that transformed her personality. The shy, withdrawn girl gradually gave way to a confident and curious child who was no longer afraid to express herself or try new things. On a December afternoon, as snowflakes began to fall slowly outside, Jonathan watched from the living room window a scene he could never have imagined months before. Lily and Olivia building a snowman in the garden, under the watchful and amused supervision of Mary, who was showing them how to make perfect snowballs. The girls' laughter reached him, as crystal clear as the snow itself. The garden, once silent and merely decorative, had been transformed into a living playground, a space of joy and discovery. Jonathan thought of the birthday party that had changed everything, the empty hall and the meaningless gifts, the solitary tear running down his daughter's face. And then, Mary's unexpected arrival, the simple gift made with love, the genuine smile that had lit up Lily's face. What had begun as an empty party had transformed into a new beginning full of love and hope. Not just for Lily, but for all of them. And as he watched the three of them outside, their silhouettes outlined against the white of the accumulating snow, Jonathan felt a deep certainty. Sometimes, the most precious gifts don't come wrapped in expensive paper or elegant bows. Sometimes, they arrive in the form of people who enter our lives at the exact moment we need them, bringing precisely what we lack. Presence, empathy, courage, friendship, the true gifts that no money can buy,